Hey everyone, hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to the live stream. I'm quickly just going to post the live stream on Twitter so that I can actually just get people coming on to the live stream if they actually want to join. A little bit late, a little bit impromptu. Unfortunately, I was actually out watching a movie earlier today, so I had to get sort of acclimated to the results as well, with the Chelsea and City game being so crazy as it was. So yeah, I mean, just quickly posting that tweet. Alrighty. Great. Well, I mean, in terms of my week, I'll just quickly show you guys how I've been doing so far. So in terms of live rank, 80 points was what I got, right? 80 points giving me a green arrow towards the top 50k back again. Hoping to stay here for the long term now, but clearly, of course, look, Simicast is going to stick out like a sore thumb for people who are just looking at points, but I think the logic to bench Simicast made sense to me. I've already made my transfer plans video. I've already recorded it and I've given my thoughts there. But the gist of it is when you bench players, I think you do it based on the information that you have. And the information that we had probably led to most people suggesting that they should bench Simicast or even sell him. And so a lot of people did sell Simicast. A lot of people also benched him because we thought he's been playing poorly and Joe Gomez is there, as the sort of deputizable left back and someone who would probably play ahead of him. Now, the issue, of course, is Joe Gomez had an injury. We didn't know about it. Jurgen Klopp didn't alert us to it. And this happened multiple times with multiple fixtures this week, right? Ferguson, for example, with his back injury. Konate as well with an injury. What else was there? I think Ben White with an undisclosed injury as well. So these sorts of situations were things that we weren't alerted to, and we make decisions outside of that in FPL. And I think it's totally okay that the outcome was such that I have 15 for Simicast on my bench. And I don't really regret it too much. Fortunately, he also happened to assist my captain in terms of Salah, and I'm pretty happy he did so. But yeah, look, considering I got Simicast on the bench, 80 points is something I'll take, and a green arrow is something I'll take as well. But looking at the member chat as well, Jay Wavy, up, same situation. Henry, I imagine the same stuff with you as well. Ben C, sorry about 53, that's tough. Anything sort of stick out in particular for you to struggle? Was it maybe just missing Salah, missing Haaland potentially? A lot of people blanked this week as well. Matoma blanked. I thought Diaby was a fraud, honestly. And his minutes are very, very concerning, ultimately. So I'm going to be shipping out Diaby as soon as possible. I'm going to be shipping out Cash as well. And those are the two players that I'm targeting for transfers. Missing Salah, Captain Fernandes. Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, I mean, Fernandes made sense. Fernandes also had good chances as well, if I'm honest. But this is sort of the story of his season where unless he's, let's say, bailing the game out with the penalty or late goal, sometimes Fernandes just really hasn't been meeting his standards. Even within the game. Son within Madison. Yep, Son was poor as well. But I also think Son's a hold, if that makes sense. Who would I replace Diaby with? Yeah, I would bench. I would sell Diaby for Eze and Mbumo. I mean, most people said that they would bench Simicast because they thought Joe Gomez would play. I thought Joe Gomez would play, and then it turns out that he was injured. So that's why I had Simicast on my bench. Adingra didn't get lucky at all. I think Adingra, look, 9 points is probably what you deserve. You've played him for 3 weeks straight. He started 3 fixtures in a row. So I'm happy for you, Ben. Do we have info about Gomez? It seems like it's actually a short-term injury. So I believe with Gomez, the idea is that he's coming back after the international break. In terms of transfers out, however, just quickly touch on my team. I think Cash to Saliba, one transfer I could do. Cash to Lascelles, also another transfer I could do. Just because I'll probably be moving out of Diaby. Now, I could go Diaby to Mbumo straight away, or I could just go Diaby to Eze. So it's Diaby or Eze for me. And I think I might go Eze because the way I see it, Eze much better fixture, Luton away. And then I can actually just move into Mbumo on game week 14 through Gordon, right? Because if I do this, right, Lascelles in, Gordon out in game week 14, then obviously I probably wouldn't lose 0.4, right, on Mbumo. I can just capture Mbumo in game week 14. Why not Matoma? I've got no interest in Matoma, to be honest. I think Brighton First of all, Mitoma's underlying stats have actually worsened year on year. So Mitoma is actually one of the few picks I would say who's been overperforming this year a little bit. And ultimately the fixtures, he's had some good fixtures now. But by the time it comes to, let's say, Game Week 14, I think I'd prefer Mbumo. And then actually, I think I prefer Eze versus Luton away than Nottingham Forest away for Brighton. So those are my thoughts, basically, in terms of transfers. Why is Son a hold for me? I think you can't overreact to one game in terms of course, they were shocking versus Wolves in terms of chance creation, but that was also an away fixture, and I just don't really see the need. I don't even know who I'd be transferring into. Maybe Bowen, potentially, but he's still on penalties. I don't think Spurs are going to be a team that suddenly will not be able to score a goal ever again. And at the end of the day, he's playing 90 minutes every game for Spurs and is the penalty taker. And sometimes we can see the value of a penalty taker. Just look at Palmer, for example, the last 4 weeks. And yeah, that's why I'm not too concerned about Spurs overall. And when it comes down to it, if I can hold, let's say, Son through the City fixture, these fixtures after that are still pretty good. And hopefully they'll have more bodies coming back. For example, Udogie coming back into the team next week is going to help with the attacking build-up, right? Porro still is a shining sort of light, I suppose, in that Spurs team. And I think he's still good as a hold for me. I just think that when I look at Diaby, his minutes are very poor. So looking at Diaby, he's more of a priority transfer out because I can't guarantee Diaby playing 60 minutes or 70 minutes or 80 minutes. I got 80 points. It just hasn't updated. So this is my live rank for you guys. I'll just quickly said, got 80 points this week. Green. I think Mitoma will definitely play 90 minutes next week. But the thing is, he is still prone to a bench because they're still competing in 2 competitions, right? I'm just going to put that there because unfortunately the bonus points have not updated in FPL, and I don't really want to spam on the chat, and just, yeah, if you guys are curious about my team next week, that's what it is. But you see, Cash, obviously, I don't want to be playing him versus Tottenham. I still think Tottenham will score, and Aston Villa's defense haven't been really good. I also think I could be playing Archer ahead of Gordon, potentially. Really depends on what the situation is. I'm just going to pin that message as well so that I don't have to spam the chat. But otherwise, that's that. In terms of sort of cash replacements, right? As I said, Lascelles or Saliba are on my mind. Selling Mitoma for Burnley. What do you mean by selling Mitoma for Burnley? I don't think it makes sense to sell Mitoma. I don't own Mitoma, so it's not really a question for me, I suppose. You think Mitoma to Mbumo this week would be fine? I would hold Mbumo for 1 more week, personally. Ben C, you're moved cash to Saliba. Yeah, that makes sense to me. 98 with Simicast on the bench. Mate, Keaton, what team do you have to get 98 with Simicast on the bench? That's mental. 68 points all out from 10k to 19k. Nice job, though, still, at the end of the day, Adam. So, still in a very healthy rank spot for you. So, just a massive congratulations overall is all I'll say. Yeah. $80 points. I mean, 80 points is... It was okay in the end, basically, with Simicast on the bench. Let's just say that. Ooh, Anchor, nice. 75 points. That's awesome. Is that a green arrow for you? You meant Mbumo, sorry. Selling... Mbumo for Burnley. I'm a bit confused. What does that mean? Selling Mbumo for Burnley. As they looked good? Yeah, he absolutely did. That's a high Salah score. What do you mean by that? Sorry. What happened to Colwill? So Colwill, once again, just another injury that we didn't get informed about. Colwill apparently has I think it's a back or a shoulder injury, which means that he should be back after the international break. So obviously keep in mind, guys, that we do have an international break coming, and that's probably going to mean that a lot of the injured players this week are coming back anyways. So we shouldn't really be concerned. And yeah, it's really annoying, to be honest, that we have so many injuries in the first place. Simicast bench was an absolute disaster for me as well. Captaincy thoughts next game week. Look, I think it's Erling Haaland. I don't even think it's even a question. Why don't I think about Bowen? I can't afford Bowen from Diaby, first of all. And I want to save money for... I think Mbumo and Eze are both better picks than Bowen. Do I think Cole was a good transfer in? Not now. Not now, necessarily. You don't really want a Chelsea defender for now. I think Tsimikas is still a hold. We need to see what happens with Joe Gomez, and we need to react to that. Probably still a red arrow, but might climb a bit out of the mini league gutter. Nah, that's good to hear, Anka. Don't care about rank. Look, honestly, I know some fantastic FPL players who are still struggling in terms of rank this season, and I have no doubt that they'll actually shoot up. So I would take it easy. Look, we have effectively 26 more game weeks to make better decisions that hopefully will be rewarded, right, with better outcomes. So yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, I probably have made some pretty poor decisions. I think, for example, going Diaby on my Game Week 8 wildcard was a shocking decision. As it turns out, Mbumo has pretty much farted on me every week since. And this was the only week where I felt moderately happy. But yeah, how come Haaland and Salah on the same points? Because you get one less point for scoring a goal as a striker. Alvarez to Jackson. I probably wouldn't overreact. I think Jackson's been great, but keep in mind Nkunku's coming back as well. So that's going to be a problem. You told me Tsimikas will play, but did you tell me that Joe Gomez was injured? That's the problem. I didn't know Joe Gomez was injured. So if you told me Joe Gomez was injured, I would definitely play Tsimikas, but I didn't have any confirmation of that at all. And Mbumo could have easily scored once again. And that's why I think Diaby is a very easy transfer out, because I think Diaby's been very lucky to get his points, if I'm being honest. Upgrade Cash to Saliba with Gabriel in the team. I think it still makes sense to go double Arsenal defense, because I would rather go double Arsenal defense than double Arsenal attack. Nkunku, I think Nkunku might take away minutes from all the players, right? From Sterling to Palmer to Jackson, to be honest. And we need to sort of understand what's going to happen, because I think if you see the way Nkunku was used in the preseason, he was played on the wings, he was also played central, he was also played as a 10. So you need to actually see exactly what happens with Nkunku. I don't think I can overreact to that. Best player to get for the next game week, I'm going to wildcard in 14. If you're just punting on game week 13, I mean, let's have a think about that. Game week 13, what are the fixtures? Terrible fixtures all around, if I'm honest. Tough, though, isn't it? Game week 13 is such a bad week. I suppose there's still some Brighton assets who still... I think Eze is actually a good transfer, you know? Solanke as well. Solanke's a great transfer. Who's Solanke playing? He's Sheffield United away, right? Solanke's a great transfer. Eze's a great transfer. Yeah, I think those are your sort of players that you want to look into for next week. Maybe even another Spurs player, like a cheaper one. If you're trying to create like if you're just looking for a short-term sort of enabling transfer and you're trying to make another better move. I mean, Bowen's still pretty good. Johnson's right there as well. So I think Johnson's okay. I'm trying to think, maybe Foden's not too bad, but of course it's Liverpool. You know, make what you want of it. But yeah, I think Eze and Solanke are probably the best differentials I can describe right now in the midfield and forward positions. In terms of defender positions, my God, every fixture next week is horrible for defense. If anything, I'd probably tempt myself with I'd probably just go Saliba, honestly. Maybe. I mean, Fulham have an okay game, don't they? They have Wolves at home, but you know, Wolves actually with the subs that they have too, I'd be a bit concerned. Do I think Archer can play? I mean, obviously Archer can play. I might bet as it stands right now, I'm probably gonna bench Gordon. Solanke is a great shout for sure as a transfer. Yep, agree with that one. Who do you think is a good Watkins replacement in Game Week 15? You know, Darwin might still be a great replacement, right? If we look at Mr. Nunez over here. I mean, if you were to, let's say, go into Nunez in Game Week 15, you got Sheffield United away immediately, then Crystal Palace. Obviously, two tough fixtures there. United, Arsenal. Maybe it's a little bit tougher, but still, those are home games, and then you've still got Burnley. So that general run is not too bad. I mean, you might even want to jump out from Watkins on 14 if you want to, if you want to really tempt yourself with Darwin. But I mean, Alvarez also, if you want to commit to free at 18, is not too bad. The problem, of course, is, I mean, it really just depends. Like, do you think City will smash Aston Villa? That's a question you probably want to ask yourself, and you want to make a decision there. Because obviously, Luton's great, Crystal Palace is great, Everton, Sheffield. I mean, those are four fantastic fixtures if you're going to go free at 18. Would you play Porro Gabriel next week? I'm definitely going to play Porro and Gabriel. So for me, it's not really a question. But if it's for you and you need to pick one of them, I'd probably pick Porro. Just pick the attacker in that situation. Palmer saved you a bit. My points was 80 points, Kai. Villa attack can always score, but the thing is, every team next week can score. Like Brentford can score versus, like I think Aston Villa, Tottenham, probably both teams to score, but you know that's why I would rather pick an attacker. I think Arsenal, Brentford, probably both teams to score as well, but in that situation, I'd rather have an attacking fullback, I suppose, just to compare. Thoughts on Everton? I've been saying Everton have been a very, very good attack, very promising attack at least. So I think, yeah, if you want to go into Doucouré or something like that, fair enough. I smashed you this game week, Kai. We're not competing versus each other, Kai. Just want to let you know that. Gordon to Palmer. Gordon to Palmer makes sense a lot. I think Gordon to Palmer is a great move in the future. Diaby to Mbeumo next. I actually think Diaby to Eze is quite a good move. Diaby to Mbeumo makes sense as well. Reece James, I would probably consider game week 14 / game week 16. Pinnock, I'd probably go Pinnock. Cash to Maguire, Lascelles. Look, actually, good question. I'd probably go Lascelles if I'm honest, because it seems like I know they're struggling with injury issues, but that was probably their worst defensive performance in a while. And I do think, obviously, after an international break, they're going to come back a little bit stronger, right? A couple more bodies are back. Barnes could be close. Isaac's definitely back. Wilson's back. These are obviously not defensive players, but hopefully, for example, someone like Longstaff who got injured, or for example, all these players who are running on fumes from this Newcastle team, a lot of them actually, fortunately, do not play for their national teams. For example, Bruno Guimaraes will get a rest. Actually, he might play for Brazil, but Joe Linton, for example, will get a rest. Gordon will get a rest. Trippier, unfortunately, won't get a rest, but most of the back line will get a rest. You get what I mean, right? Shaw obviously plays for his international team, but how do you mentally cope with, if I started X, I would have gotten more points. It is killing me. I think the way I cope with it is, would I make that decision with the information I have? And did I make that decision, and was I comfortable with that decision? And you know what? Benching Tsimikas was something I was super comfortable with. I mean, let's all stare at my 15 Tsimikas points on the bench together. I'm very comfortable benching Tsimikas because I didn't know. Jurgen Klopp never told me that Joe Gomez was injured. So because Jurgen Klopp never told me this, I never knew that I would actually play Tsimikas. So that's why I don't really care that I have Tsimikas on the bench. And I can move on mentally from that. Gordon to Mbeumo. Gordon to Mbeumo is a lovely move. You feel we are at a crossroads. I think this is probably the first game week where you want to really consider whether you want to go for free at 18 as a strategy or whether you don't. Trippier fuming. Yeah, I saw that. You seen how many injuries we have? Yeah, I saw that with Trippier. Diaby to Mbeumo this week. I think it makes sense. But I think Eze is also on the cards. Low-key bring in Doku against Liverpool. Low-key, I will not bring in Doku versus Liverpool. Doku's a great pick, but I mean, the concern is always going to be minutes, and he's not always going to have such a crazy performance like the Bournemouth game. Darwin's fantastic. Darwin and Alvarez will be great, easy transfers away from Watkins. I used to be very emotional as well, Soldier Boy, but fortunately this is not my first season playing FPL, or not one of my early seasons playing FPL. The way I've played FPL has changed a lot. I think people are reacting to Alvarez maybe. I think people are reacting to Watkins and Darwin maybe doing a little bit better than Alvarez, even though actually I think Darwin at the end of the day just matched Alvarez, right? Actually considering taking my first -4 to get Haaland back now. Teams just fold to this guy for no reason. I mean, let's be honest, this is not news, right? It's not news that Haaland is a good football player. Not that I'm actually targeting you, JR, by the way. I'm just saying, I think for the people who went out of Haaland, that was a very good calculated gamble. They were a little bit fortunate with the Bournemouth fixture, but otherwise Salah has been fantastic, and the captaincies have absolutely banged for Salah. But it doesn't mean that Haaland's a bad pick, and he never has been. You can always go. I would never say Haaland's essential, but all I'm saying is if you want it to jump into Haaland, perfectly fine. If you want to continue persisting without Haaland, also perfectly fine. It just comes down to whether the bulk of your team is strong enough, right? For example, people who own Trent, unfortunately, have not benefited at all. People who've owned Bruno haven't really benefited at all. However, people who have, let's say, kept Trippier, for example, might have benefited a bit. People who, what is the other benefit of, let's say, I mean, some of the Salah captaincies, if I'm honest. You got 94, JR. Honestly, if you got 94, I don't think there's a world in my mind where I would even be concerned about Haaland. And that's my point. It's very clear that the rest of your team's doing the business. The thing is, yeah, I mean, Haaland's going to do well from time to time. It's Haaland. I wouldn't be too worried. If a player's set to rise/fall, I think it really depends, Soldier Boy, if it's my favorite move, right? If it's my favorite move, I'll always consider making that move. If it's not my favorite move, I would not consider it. For example, let's say Eze is my priority transfer, right? if Eze was going to rise tonight and I was 0.0 locked out, then of course I've got to go Eze. But if I'm not locked out and if I feel like I have more time to make that decision, then I can wait. Another thing too is, does Eze play any games of football until the next time he plays football, technically, right? Obviously, he's going to play in training, etc., etc. But yeah, as I said, it really just depends on that. Plans for next game week. Diaby out, cash out, either Saliba or Lascelles, and either Eze or Mbumo for those two players. And everyone else is going to stay in my team. Maybe I'll actually play Archer ahead of Gordon. Who do you think is the best cheap defender? I would love to answer Tsimikas, given that 15 of his points are on my bench. But probably, honestly, I think Lascelles is still incredible value for money. Only been following you this season after seeing your cheat sheets. How's the season going compared to previous for you? You know what's funny, guys? Last season, I made a terrible move around game week 13. I remember it so well. For some reason, I wanted to go out of Kane. I don't know why. What possessed me to go out of Kane? But I went out of Kane for -4 points. Went into Darwin and went into Foden. And Darwin was immediately injured on that game week. Didn't play. And Foden, for the first time, I think in 3 or 4 fixtures, was benched. And after that, my season was terrible until the very end. Last season, I was outside the top 10K for 37 game weeks. And I was only in the top 10K on the very, very last one. So that's how my season went. This season, I think, has been very consistent. Like I was very fortunate after the first 2 game weeks of terribleness with Kai Havertz, moved into Sterling and played Gusto as well. And then obviously since then I've been at some of the top ranks. So I've been very fortunate this season, and trying to sort of maintain my spot and obviously continue to rise. As far as Mykolenko, I think he's overperformed a little bit. As you can see, Everton's defense is still quite poor. They're still lacking in terms of their ability to get a clean sheet. I wouldn't be too, let's say, ridden with FOMO of the fact that Mykolenko scored 2 goals. He's been doing good lately. Underlying stats definitely clearly show that he's been overperforming a bit. So I wouldn't actually overreact. Palmer 4 penalties is just ridiculousness. I wouldn't even go to Palmer now. It wouldn't make sense to me. If anything, I'd rather play Gordon at home than Palmer away from home versus Newcastle. Is Pinnock a good shout? I think I would go for Pinnock if I was convinced that I was going for a free at 18 strategy. Is Martinelli injured? No. What makes you think Martinelli's injured? Thoughts on Solanke? I think Solanke and Eze are actually the 2 best picks for next week in terms of sort of jumping off points. Like if you want to, for whatever reason, if you want to save money in the forward position, then I think Solanke actually makes a lot of sense as a transfer next week. Jai, you took a -16 this week. Sub Tsimikas for Livramento. I'm sorry about that, man. But also, I would also say, I think when you're taking something like a -16, you're probably over managing in FPL. You don't really want to make your team every week a free hit team. Sometimes in FPL, the way things work is your players will do well in tough fixtures. For example, Tsimikas versus Brentford at home. That's a good fixture, but not an amazing fixture. As it turns out, Brentford, I believe, scored something like 1.56 XG. They didn't convert on it because Mbumo couldn't finish today. But yeah, I wouldn't be worried about it. Is Martinelli orange flagged? I didn't know he actually had an injury. Do we see an Areola clean sheet anytime soon? Honestly, no. I think West Ham are shocking. Alvarez to Haaland. I mean, actually, Son to Palmer, Alvarez to Haaland is actually a pretty good move. I wouldn't mind that. Hi, Fran. Who to transfer out of these 3 to get in new? Cash, Porro, Gabriel, and who to get? I mean, don't worry about Martinelli. He's got 2 weeks to get fit. Did he get? I didn't even notice that he got off injured. Sorry, guys. I have to be honest. I stopped watching after after Zinchenko scored his goal. I couldn't watch it anymore. As a Gabriel owner, couldn't watch it anymore. So I need to watch out. You are so good that most people don't want to hype you, other managers. I know someone who thinks you are a cheat code, so he won't share his friends. I appreciate that, Emmanuel. Thank you so much. That's so funny. Eze or Gordon to Mbumo? What do you mean by Eze or Gordon to Mbumo? Do you mean Gordon to Eze or Gordon to Mbumo? What's the question there? I wouldn't go out of Eze this week. I would love to keep him. Gordon to Mbumo makes a lot of sense, though, if you want to do that. Mitoma to Mbumo. I would probably still hold off on that move until next week, right? Game week 14 is probably the best time to jump off Mitoma. Considering to take out cash, but not sure which defenders to go for. You've got Porro, Tsimikas. Look, I think go for an Arsenal defender, Soccer Lover. Because probably that Arsenal defender is probably going to last you a long time. So that's going to benefit you quite a bit. Do we keep Son if he keeps blanking? I think so, yes. Alvarez goes Solanke. Sorry, guys. I've got to take 2 minutes. I'll just be here still, but I just need to quickly respond to a message here. Apologies. Just a little bit of an emergency from a friend. So if you guys don't mind just giving me a second, I will respond to all the messages in a moment. In the meantime, just enjoy my simulcast bench points, I suppose, which isn't looking so pretty on my team, if I'm being honest. My transfer plans next week are definitely, I'm looking forwards to, I really think Eze is going to be a better transfer than Mbumo just for the case of next week. But I'll explain to you why I want to go Eze and what sort of plans I have in my mind, right? Because if I go Eze, as I said, I need to also go Mbumo in the future, and I'll explain to you how I plan to do that. So don't worry so much about how I plan on doing that. I will explain in a moment. All right, I am back with you guys now. All right, just quickly loading up chat again because I think it's just frozen just a moment. Right, so apologies for taking that. Yeah, just a bit of an emergency there. Alvarez to Solanke. I honestly think, once again, if you're the type of manager who's considering, you can't see my bench points. All right, that's an emergency that you can't see my bench points. Apologies about that. I hope you can see it now. Hope you guys enjoy those. Have bonus points landed? Bonus points have landed, guys. Let's go. Good work. Now we can actually see my full bench points in all its glory. But sorry, going back to the point. Do I go to Diaby? I think best cash and Diaby replacements, as I said, Eze and Mbumo for Diaby. And as far as cash, obviously just Saliba, Lascelles, I think are the priorities. Would you play Palmer or Gordon next week? I'd probably play Gordon. But once again, it depends on, let's say, if Barnes is back, right? If Barnes is fully fit, maybe that's a question mark on Gordon's minutes. And obviously, because I'm assuming that Isaac and Wilson will be back, that's going to be a problem for Gordon overall. So in that situation, I would probably actually go Palmer. But once again, it depends on Barnes. What do you think of Reece James? I think Reece James are always fantastic pick in FPL. But the question is, do you really want to be going to Reece James in these tough fixtures? Think about it today. Of course, he gets an assist, but Newcastle, Brighton, Man United, do those scream clean sheets to me? If I'm honest, no. I probably wouldn't touch Reece James until Game Week 16. And that's why I've been keeping Colwell in my team. You know, I just plan on keeping Colwell until Game Week 16. Then I'm going to live the good life, which is going to be Everton, Sheffield United, Wolves, Crystal Palace, Luton, Fulham. Game Week 14 on. I think Game Week 14 onwards is good fixtures for Chelsea from the attacking point of view, but not from the defensive point of view. So I wouldn't jump on a Chelsea defender on Game Week 14. I would jump on a Chelsea defender on Game Week 16. However, in terms of Chelsea, I would definitely move into attacker as soon as Game Week 14. As far as keeping Son, I think let's just reassess after the Aston Villa game. I don't see him as a priority transfer out. He's going to be playing at home. Aston Villa are actually a pretty mediocre defense. In terms of, let's say, where they are in the position in the table, I think Aston Villa are actually quite a poor defense. They sort of remind me of a Brighton level defense. And I'll be doing a YouTube video which will be updating ourselves on, for example, the underlying stats for all the teams this season and all the sort of key players, just looking at what are the sort of talking points that are worth sort of considering now that we have at least 12 game weeks of information. Is Saka essential? In my opinion, still no. I think Arsenal's attack have actually dropped a lot in terms of our estimations, right? This time last season, we thought Arsenal were comfortably the second best attack. I don't think that's true anymore. I think Liverpool is clearly the second best attack. And obviously City first, and maybe Newcastle even better than Arsenal. Another question to ask is actually, you know, are Chelsea and Spurs up there ahead of Arsenal? And maybe they are. Because Arsenal actually, they've gotten 6 penalties. So if you take away the XG of their penalties, actually they're a pretty poor team when it comes to non-penalty XG. Based on my budget, are you able to sell Gordon and Diaby for Eze and Mbumo? Yes, I am. But let me show you how I plan to go to Eze and Mbumo. So the plan is to go out of Diaby next week, right, into Eze, right? go to Eze, go out of cash, go into Lascelles instead, and then actually Gordon to Mbumo in the future. That's probably one of my transfer plans. Now, it also depends on, if I want Cole Palmer in Gameweek 14, maybe I don't need both Eze and Mbumo. Maybe I just need to make one decision. Maybe I just need to make the decision, say, okay, I'm going to keep Gordon, and I'm not going to go for Eze. And so if I don't go for Eze, then obviously this would be Mbumo, this would still be Gordon in the time being, and then I save a transfer in Game Week 14 for Palmer, if that makes sense as well. And maybe in that situation, then I can obviously just go Saliba. Actually, I can't go Saliba, right? Because I'll be owning Gordon for the short term, which would mean that I can only go for a 4.9 defender, which is a tough position to be in, but I think it's not the worst position to be in either. So that's one thing on my mind. Now, I think Porro is going to be a hold for me for the short term. I also don't really want to go out of Son. So I do want to keep Son, if I'm honest. And I do want to captain Haaland. If I don't go, let's say, is there anything better than Lascelles, but also cheaper than Saliba? Not really, in my opinion. So I think it's quite tough. I think I would probably still just go Lascelles at the end of the day, pocket some of the change, and then eventually go Gordon to Palmer. And then with the additional money in the bank, I would probably just make another move in the future. Let's say, for example, what do I need money in the bank for? I need money in the bank to upgrade my Calamitous goalkeeping situation, and probably also the insurance if, let's say, I wanted to move out of, I don't know, let's say Tsimikas, if he continues to get benched by Joe Gomez when he comes back from injury, then maybe that is a situation too. Or for example, if I need the money in the bank to suddenly upgrade Colwill to, let's say, James in the future, then I need that sort of money as well. So that's something that I have generally in my mind. I need to make the decision of whether I'm going for, let's say, Eze and Mbumo as a pair for my midfield in the future, or whether I want my pair to be, let's say, Mbumo plus Palmer instead. Why not Pinnock? I think Pinnock has a great fit. Pinnock will commit me to free at 18. And that's one of the things that I have in my mind, right? Whatever defender transfer I make this week, I need to consider whether they play on game week 18 and on that blank game week. Because, for example, Lascelles has a good game, right? Lascelles is playing Luton Town away on game week 18. And that's the blank. So that's something you need to consider. As far as, let's say, if I go for Pinnock, I mean, if I go for Pinnock, obviously that improves some of the fixtures in the short term. For example, I have great fixtures here, like Luton at home, great fixture, Sheffield United away, great fixture. But still, that would kind of commit me towards free at 18. So that's my concern. Why go Lascelles when Newcastle have 7 out of 8 first-team injuries in tough fixtures? Just because Lascelles is a long-term move, and Lascelles would only serve me the favor of, let's say, just playing Game Week 18 out versus Luton, right? Lascelles at 4.1, you don't really need this player to be playing each week. I'm not looking at Lascelles like, oh, please play Chelsea for me, please play United for me. I would just play Lascelles for Fulham. I'd play him for Luton. I'd play him for Nottingham Forest. I would even maybe consider playing him versus Everton away, but I don't really need to do that. Why free hit when you can just bench? I mean, what does that even mean? If you let's say own Haaland and Alvarez and Mbumo and all these players, you're going to have a pretty awful team, right? That's just the logic of it. In the future, I might go Alvarez as a transfer. But if I go for Pinnock, that's going to restrict myself to having 4 other defenders that need to play that week. So for example, if I go for Pinnock, I'd have to play Tsimikas. I'd have to play Tsimikas versus Arsenal. I'd have to play Gabriel versus Liverpool. I'd have to play Porro, who's actually got a good fixture in Game Week 18, which is Everton at home. But that also really just restricts me to, let's say, having 2 players who actually have a good game week on 18. The good thing about Eze is that he has many routes to points. Absolutely. I mean, Eze is basically what I would call an A-tier Mbumo. If Mbumo is S-tier, then Eze is A-tier. And both of them will be green on my cheat sheet. But the reality about Eze and Mbumo is they're broken, right? Penalty takers at a cheap price, takes some set pieces as well, such as corners, and in general, open play stats are really good. Surely by the time Lascelles' good fixtures come around, I mean, we're not sure, right? Because actually, Botman is still looking for an injury diagnosis. So we probably need a little bit of an update there. And I get to monitor the situation as well. So I'm not going to jump onto Lascelles immediately. Hopefully we get some news from Eddie Howe. Because if you think about it, the international break is 2 weeks' time. We'll get some time to sort of sit on that news. And we'll be able to wait for Eddie Howe to maybe give us an update in 2 weeks' time, telling us whether Botman needs surgery or whether Botman might actually have other issues, right? If Botman turns out to have other issues, then I can just jump onto Lascelles. I'm not locking in my moves tonight. I'm just talking about transfer plans in the future. And the thing is with Botman, we know that he's been struggling to get a proper diagnosis. And that actually makes me think that that's probably a very severe injury, because think about when players have injuries. Usually you get a diagnosis 3 to 4 weeks out, 4 to 5 weeks out. X player has surgery, Y player has surgery. With Botman, he still hasn't been able to even sort of properly diagnose what exactly his injury is, which actually tells me it's probably going to be a bad situation, something that he might need to get operated on, and maybe he just doesn't want to get operated on, but he's seeking external advice. What about Bernardo? I think Bernardo, once again, just one of those City players who doesn't have good enough open play stats. The thing about Bernardo sometimes is he will play center mid sometimes, he will play left back sometimes, he will play right wing, sometimes he'll play left wing, sometimes he'll play as a 10. So it depends. I think Bernardo is a little bit of a Swiss Army knife for Pep. From an FPL point of view, I think he's got a low ceiling, though. Would you bring Saka in if you didn't have him? Probably not. Does KSI DM me for advice? No, KSI follows me on Twitter, or X, I believe it's called. But no, he's not DM'd me once. I wouldn't mind getting a DM from KSI. Maybe I should just DM KSI. What do you guys think? Maybe he needs a bit of my advice. I'm just joking. Alvarez to Solanke and Mitoma to Bowen. I think those are great moves. If you really want to go out of Alvarez, I do think Solanke makes a lot of sense. Solanke is a great transfer. Solanke also has a great fixture as well, simply. Do you need to go out of Mitoma, though? That's probably one of the questions I would ask. Hey, Fran, thanks for getting back to my comment. Who should I bring in? 0.2 in the bank. So I think Livramento will actually play for you next week, so I wouldn't be too concerned about your defense. I mean, I'd probably think about maybe moving out of Gordon, potentially, but actually it's very tough because you got 0.2 in the bank, and I don't think you can really upgrade Gordon with that sort of money. Because it's not like Palmer has a perfect fixture. I'd actually probably just consider rolling in your situation, my friend. Your team doesn't look bad at all. Unless you want to go for another defender, which I probably wouldn't in your position. I would just keep your team as it is. Honestly, I think your team looks good. Eduard, a good choice. Definitely he's a good choice. I think Eduard and Solanke are probably leading options. Would you go out of Alvarez? I probably wouldn't go out of Alvarez, but once again, it comes down to whether you really want to free at 18. Why waste a transfer Eze when you're going with Mbeumo from Gameweek 14? If I go for Eze, it's not about going from Eze to Mbeumo. It's about going from Gordon to Mbeumo. Not the other way around. So I would be going Diaby to Eze, and then I'd be going Gordon to Mbeumo. It's not about going from Eze to Mbeumo. Just to sort of let you know. Saliba will rise in price. Yeah, I mean, you could get him in as soon as now if you want to. I think. Is Bowen a must? I don't think Bowen's a must. I'm not going to Bowen myself. Best Dean replacement. You've got Simicast and Lascelles. Probably just an Arsenal defender. If you can afford one. What's my team value? I mean, we can have a look at my team value if you guys want to. 103.6 mil is my team value. Have I discussed possibly replacing Son this stream? I have discussed replacing Son. My immediate thoughts are that I don't want to displace Son on my team. I think I'm probably going to keep him for the Aston Villa fixture. And by then, I probably also would keep him, you know... Honestly, I think as long as you can persist with Son until the City fixture, then actually this run of games from 15 to 20 is actually quite good for Son, because Son will be leaving towards AFCON on Gameweek like 22, 21, around that time. Not AFCON, sorry, bro. Of course, Son is going to the Asian Cup. Son will not be playing FPL. So Son, Mbeumo, Salah, and Hwang will not be playing in FPL as soon as Game Week 22 rolls around, I believe, because they will be traveling to 1, the Asian Cup, or 2, AFCON. So those players will have to leave our team. So if you think about it, actually, owning Salah, Son, and Mbeumo, you actually need to sort of plan transfers out for them around that time as well. So that's something to keep in mind too. But I only plan on taking Son out of my team around then. You don't think Son plays FPL? I mean, he probably doesn't. Do you go Pure Gym? I do go Pure Gym. So if it's the Pure Gym in somewhere around East London, then do let me know and just say hi to me, please. I would love to say hi. Appreciate you. When will Saliba go up in price? I mean, I can quickly check now. Just one of the price change websites. Let's have a look there now. Let's see. So I'm using the FF Hub price change website. Seems like Salah might rise. Seems like Darwin might rise. Mikalenko might rise. Porro maybe. Mitchell and Bowen pretty close. I don't think Saliba's actually close to rising, my friends. Seems like that might be a transfer tomorrow. But actually, the transfer momentum over the course of the day might actually push Saliba up to a rise. So maybe watch that space as well. Colwell seems like he's close to falling. Foster is close to falling. Madison's close to falling. Gusto as well. Botman may be close to falling. Alvarez close to falling as well, if you guys are curious. Nothing really too significant. Walker also close to rising. That's pretty interesting. Even though Man City don't really have great fixtures in the short term. So that seems to be it in terms of... seems to be it in terms of price changes, if you want some information there on price changes. So that was provided to you by FF Hub. Palmer close to rising? Doesn't seem like it. Palmer just can't stop scoring goals though, can he? Just can't stop getting those penalties, which is fair enough. Penalty takers do take penalties. So can I really complain? What's my defensive lineup for next game week? It's a pretty terrible one, but once I take cash out of my team, I don't think it's that terrible. It's obviously awful. Everyone's defense stinks next week, let's be honest. But, you know, it is what it is. I'll remove Cash and I'll remove Diaby. I don't think Eze is actually close to a rise at all, by the way, guys. For anyone who's actually interested in Eze, I don't think he's close to a rise as far as I can see. Eze is like 27.6%, so it's suggesting that he's not close to a rise, which means that I probably won't need to exercise any of my moves. What's a respectable rank for someone who's been playing the game for 3 or 4 years? I don't think setting expectations makes sense necessarily. I think at the end of the season, you probably just want to be top 100k, and I think that's sort of the goal that I think is achievable. But also sort of, given that we have 10 million players that actually very avidly play, I think it makes sense, you know, to set your target as top 100k. Can't believe I'm actually doing Diaby to Palmer later today. Fair enough if you're doing that. I do want to go out of Diaby in the short term. Can't believe I'm actually, sorry, kind of personal, but tips on finding a partner. There are a few good people out there. I mean, I think it depends where you're situated, right? Whether you're in a big city, small city, whether you're able to meet people at work, whether you're, I don't know, whether you're actually able to go to sort of social events as well. But I mean, dating apps, they work as well too. I have not had any experience using dating apps. I met my wife just by fortune, by luck. But I think don't for example try to meet people with the intention of meeting people. You know, just live life as it is. Try to like look for opportunities to meet other people, but not necessarily with the intention of, you know, looking for your long-term partner or anything like that. And just make sure it's genuine. That's what I would say. Get Saliba in now on the stream. People trying to push up Saliba's price rise here. FPL has made me cheer for teams I don't like. It's funny because I'm a Real Madrid fan, so I'm actually cheering and not cheering for teams that I don't really necessarily care about. Obviously, I care about the Premier League a lot because FPL is a huge hobby of mine, and I actually watch probably more Premier League games than La Liga games in total each week. But yeah, that's funny. After this game week, I'm ranked 1029. That's awesome, Alejandro. Well done. Who are you selling cash for? How much do you have in my bank? I've got 0 in the bank, and I'm probably going to go Lascelles. Just to put Lascelles on my bench, actually. Or maybe actually just play him versus Chelsea. We'll see what happens. I don't really want to make any transfers tonight, guys. We've got 2 weeks to make better decisions. So let's make those better decisions with more information. And hopefully, you know, without players who are getting injured on international break and so on and so forth. So that's my overarching concern. I think we don't need to jump onto crazy transfers. I think Diaby out is definitely going to be locked in for me, though. I'll be honest there and just say that. That brother is getting out of my team fast. So we also saw Eze play 90 minutes versus Everton, which means that his minutes are basically safe once again, which is why I think Eze is such a great move. So that's one thing to consider, in my opinion. Porro as well is a fantastic lock in my team. So if I just think long term, I mean, I think I want to get the issues out of my team on this game week because I got 2 free transfers to do so. But after that, I think I need to just consider, you know, what are the small moves do I want? Do I want Palmer? Do I want Diaby? Sorry, for example, like between the 3 midfielders that I don't have that are very popular, right? Eze, Mbumo, and Palmer. Which 2 out of 3 do I want? I think we need to make those sorts of decisions this week so that we can actually plan ahead accordingly. So that's something I need to keep in my mind. Like, do I want Palmer for the long term? And obviously, Nkunku's coming back as well. We need to sort of think about, okay, is Nkunku going to change Palmer's minutes? Or maybe he's going to change Jackson's. Or maybe he's going to change Sterling's. So far, it seems like Jackson is that sort of player who's always the one who's taken off a little bit earlier than everyone else. So the way I see it, obviously, since they play Caicedo, Enzo, and Gallagher, or Gallagher as a 3, right, in the midfield, it's probably the situation where we're actually going to be keeping Palmer and Sterling, and maybe let's say Nkunku leads the line and Jackson comes in as a sub. We never really know. For example, I think Broya came in today, so that's something to think about as well. And then in time, obviously, we can think about, James as a transfer option later on. So I'm not too concerned about, let's say, overreacting towards Chelsea. Obviously, they're a great attacking team, as we've seen so far. Other great picks, for example, are players like Maguire too. But do we really need to jump onto Maguire? Maybe not. Mikalenko is an interesting one too, obviously at 4.3, but I also think that a lot of people are jumping the gun. And you also need to think about, if you're bringing in a transfer this week for a defender, do they have a good Game Week 18 fixture? Because even though, yes, of course, we all have a bench, you probably will have a thinner bench than most that week because Haaland's on the bench. If you have Haaland and Alvarez, you're actually relying on Archer, which actually is a problem, right? 4-5-1 with Archer with a bad fixture on Game Week 18 isn't ideal. Well, what is Archer's fixture? Aston Villa away. So that's a tough game, and you probably don't want to be playing Archer as an example. Going back to the questions, why not hold Diaby until after the Bournemouth game? Because his minutes are very poor now, for example. And someone said that Diaby's bad. That could be true. So Diaby actually played 60 minutes for effectively his European game this week and also the Premier League game, which probably suggests that, unfortunately, for Unai Emery, that he's just not cutting the mustard, I suppose. Would you consider playing Archer or Palmer next week? I'd probably actually consider playing Archer. Thoughts on the goalkeeper situation? Definitely probably a situation where I think if I can go Flecken in the future, then I can do that. Oh, you meant Jackson is bad. Sorry about that. Well, I mean, Diaby's been awful as well, if I'm being honest. I think he's been very lucky. Can I rank Mitoma, Mbeumo, Eze, Palmer, and Gordon? I think Palmer long-term is probably going to be number 2. Mbeumo, I think, is number 1 until Tony's back. Eze's number 2 for now. Palmer 3. Mitoma 4. Gordon 5. I own Gordon, and I think, honestly, without bias, I think Gordon is definitely one of the most overrated picks in FPL, and that's just my personal opinion. Even though I love Gordon, and he's actually bailed me out 2 game weeks, I've been very fortunate to get some good Gordon points. Is Gordon still a good pick? Honestly, I think he's average, like above average, but I think like he's a bit overrated. And you know what's actually crazy about Gordon is it's just the fact that Mbeumo's crazy, Eze's crazy because they have penalties, and Palmer also. I mean, this brother just can't stop getting penalties, can he? And Palmer will just have better fixtures long term. So yeah, I think Palmer's better than Gordon long term. So the way I see it, I'd probably keep Gordon and then move into Palmer. I need to make some decisions, though, as I said. So it's either Eze plus Mbeumo or Palmer plus Mbeumo. I think Mbeumo is always going to be in my team no matter what. So planning around that is something that I need to do. You're going Pope and Newcastle have the nice fixtures again. Pope literally saved that Bournemouth game from being 3-0, 4-0. I don't also know how Bournemouth missed some of those chances. Semenyo had a great chance. Has Onana redeemed himself? I think yes. I think I was never overreacting to Onana too much, I would say. You would probably find that Onana was still in my cheat sheets as soon as a few weeks ago. Has he redeemed himself in terms of, do you want to jump onto him in your FPL team? Probably not, because the way I see it with Onana, because Maguire is 4.3 million or 4.2 million, just stick Maguire in your team. So much cheaper. Save yourself some money there. And you'll probably get the same sort of benefit of, let's say, owning Onana. But I think in a sense, he's redeemed himself so that we can actually consider him later in the season. Would I get rid of Gordon now? Potentially. But I think Diaby is a bigger problem for me, right? At the end of the day, Gordon has a home fixture. Diaby has an away fixture. Diaby's minutes are a little bit more suspicious. So I would probably go out of Diaby first. You've captained Saka. You're gone from your league. I think it's a tough week if you've made a differential captaincy. But as I said, I think these are the sort of weeks where you need to sort of recover over time. And we have 26 game weeks more to make some better moves, hopefully get some better outcomes, and we can just respond there. MJX says he's got currently Cash, Lascelles, Simicast, Taylor, Guehi, Salah, Saka, Son, Bowen, Chukwuemeka, Alvarez, Watkins, Haaland. How do you get Mbeumo 2 free transfers? Honestly, I think you can downgrade Alvarez potentially. You can probably downgrade Alvarez into a 4.5 player, such as Archer, and then just upgrade Chukwuemeka, right? I think that's probably, just move into a 3-5-2 is probably what I would do in your situation. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. Who would I get rid of from these Saka and Mbeumo, Eze, Son, Bone? I'd honestly, you want to go Salah now? Oh, you want to bring him in after the Man City fixture? Okay, if you're saying after the Man City fixture, maybe you just go out of Bowen after the Man City fixture, because Bowen's fixtures, right? I mean, they're pretty average, pretty good, if I'm honest, but I think you can justify going out of Bowen after the Burnley game, in my opinion. The way I see it is probably what I would just go out of Bowen, because I think I'd rather keep Saka. So yeah. Adam Stewart saying 100 points this week, my highest ever. Your videos have helped me big time. I'm really happy for you, Adam. Honestly, that's awesome. Hi, Fran. Are you keeping Watkins? Yes, I'm keeping Watkins. What to do with Watkins? Do we keep him or sell him? I think Watkins, I'd probably transfer him out in Gameweek 15. And maybe I'd actually keep him for the long term. We'll see what happens. But I'm keeping Watkins. Yes, that's correct. Where do I sit with Trippier? I've always said 2 or 3 weeks ago that Trippier can be a sell. And since then, I've been selling Trippier, right? I sold Trippier then. So my opinion is he's not essential. And if you want to jump out of Trippier, jump out of Trippier. If you want to keep him, I mean, fair enough, keep him. I've always just said that he's a player that we jumped into because of the fixtures. And when the fixtures are getting tough, then that's that. Why did I start supporting Real? I'm half Spanish, actually. My family from Spain are from Madrid. Who would you start? Lascelles, Dean, Simicas. I'd probably go Lascelles, Simicas in that. Well, Lascelles, I'd probably start Lascelles. 79 points with Watkins captain and Simicas on bench. Could have been a fantastic week. Oh, that's tough, mate. That's tough. But 79 points is still incredible. I mean, you're literally 1 point below me, and I had a lot of things go my way, like my captaincy. Pavel says he's got Onana, Areola, defender. Oh, you've deleted it. Can't see that. Moez has 0.7 in the bank, 2 free transfers with Mo's team. I'd probably upgrade Diaby, probably towards, let's say, honestly, probably Diaby to Mbumo and just call it a day. I think your team is good to go. For example, you can just play Maguire, you can play Gabriel, you can play Simic, you can play Cash next week as well. Maybe also move out of Cash. I'd go, same thing as me. I'd consider moving out of Cash and Diaby. So I'd say, can you go, for example, do you want to go, question of course, do you want to go Cash into Saliba? That's one question. Or do you want to simply just go something like Cash into Lascelles, alternatively, and then just go out of Diaby into someone like Mbumo potentially? Or, for example, if you're holding Matoma for the purpose of going Mbumo, you can do the same as me. So you can go Eze as well. Is Soufal a good shout? Honestly, no. I think West Ham's defense is shocking. 90 points this week. That's huge. That is a massive green and red arrow. I'm sorry, that's a massive green arrow. Green, red arrow. What is that? So yeah. Martinelli out. I'm not sure. We need to sort of see what happens. I would say just wait for Arteta to confirm whether Martinelli is injured, in 2 weeks' time. Let's see then. Laser Gang says, thank you for the content. Thank you for watching. And also, if you guys are new here, we'd really appreciate you guys liking the stream and also subscribing in general. We've actually hit a concurrent peak of 300 viewers at various times in the stream. So I really appreciate you guys for being around. Isn't Cash a decent hold? No, because Aston Villa's defense is pretty shocking. Would I consider Dunk? No, I wouldn't. Unfortunately, Brighton's defense, to get access to the Brighton defense at 5.0 million, I think is a little bit overpriced. Is it time to move Areola on? I think if you're in a luxury situation where you don't see yourself making transfers, making moves, it makes sense. Next game week plans. As I said, it's just Diaby and Cash out. So I'll just keep them grayed out. Wouldn't you transfer out Estupiñán or wait for further injury updates? So if you've got Estupiñán, I would just wait for further updates. I mean, if he's somehow fully injured once again, then obviously, transfer him out. But if it seems like he's close, then, we can reconsider. But I think it's probably not looking good for Estupiñán. Probably better for you to actually recoup some of that money and actually benefit from that. So I'd probably do that. Other questions. So Pavel's, I think your team, I'd probably just go out of Diaby personally. That's probably what I would do with your team. I think your team's okay, honestly. Or you can just play Guehi, Pau, and Torres. It is what it is. I think you just play those players. But I don't really know if you've got 2 free transfers or 1 free transfer. I mean, obviously, if you can go out of one of the Aston Villa defenders, it makes sense. If you can go out of 2, even more. Going out of Diaby would also make sense too. Who am I moving Cash to? Either Lascelles or Saliba. You could have gotten 97 points. I mean, it is what it is. I benched Simicas myself. I'm not going to say I could have gotten 95 points or something like that, or 93 points probably, but sometimes that happens, right? We didn't get news about Joe Gomez, and you can't overreact to that. Benching Cash this week, playing him against Bournemouth and selling him for Van Dijk. Makes sense. Makes sense, Hanka. I've had enough with Cash, to be honest. I have no expectations really for him, and yeah, he's leaving my team. Estupiñán in for Cash if fit. I mean, if he's fit, yeah, that would be okay as a transfer, but I probably wouldn't wouldn't prey on that one. Hey, Fran, you're not really sure who to move Watkins out. I think we don't need to make that. We don't need to make that decision now. Game week 15 is so far away. We can wait. Let's see what happens when Nkunku's back, right? Does Nkunku start? And you don't need to make that decision until game week 15. So we can wait for Nkunku to come back. We can wait for Alvarez to come back. And we can wait for Darwin to come back as well. These are the three players that I would monitor as a transfer out. And even, for example, if you wanted to move out of Watkins this week, you can always go Solanke. You want to bring in Maguire. I don't think you should be worried about his minutes because he's actually been huge for this United team. I think his minutes are pretty safe for now. Do you think Nkunku? I think, look, Palmer has scored 4 out of 4 penalties. I don't think there's a world where I think Nkunku will take penalties away from him in the short term. So I think you have to make the assumption that Nkunku's not on penalties, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that's it for the stream. If you guys could like it and subscribe, that would be lovely. Thank you guys so much for as well joining the chat and being so interactive with me. I hope you guys enjoyed a lot of the green arrows. And if you had a tough game week, for example, you have Tsimikas on bench. As I said from the outset of the video, you do need to sort of look at, you made these decisions based on your understanding of certain situations, right? We knew that Tsimikas has been playing poorly. And even Jurgen Klopp with his sort of 45-minute substitutions, 60-minute substitutions of Tsimikas would suggest the same. But we didn't know Joe Gomez was injured. You don't really want to overreact too much to that. You probably made the best move that made sense in your head. I also thought it was the best move in my head. Sometimes that doesn't match up to the outcomes in FPL. So that's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. And once again, I'll be making a lot of content this week. If you guys have any suggestions in terms of transfer videos you want me to make, or any other sort of videos that you think one-off would be quite helpful for you guys in terms of understanding FPL a bit better, then do let me know. Otherwise, enjoy the international break, take some time off, recuperate, and look, there's 26 game weeks for us to enjoy a bit more in terms of FPL. And otherwise, take care. See you guys, and yep, have a good weekend, or the rest of the weekend.